this is where it started. This is where it all started today, pre-market. The retail environment was buzzing off of LIXT. This thing was a pretty sick trade today, and me and the team hit this thing really, really well. And it all started with the pre-market scan. Got a bunch of things that hit the scan, and there were a few that I was tracking because of the news, but LIXT was the one that I actually went to work on. You can see here's some headline news. No value in going in over all of the news that came out of this thing today, but you can see it's all there. Having said that, it was that headline piece that really got me motivated to want to watch this thing. So that takes us to pre-market. So at this particular juncture in time in the chat room with the team, I'm mentioning in the pre-market report, which I post every single morning, that LIXT is going to be potentially a game-changing trade. So this is really step one of the four-part process that I go through every single morning. What's moving? Is there a catalyst? Where am I getting in? Where am I getting out? Where's my risk on this trade? And then, the fifth part is obviously how am I going to, what pattern am I going to trade? But that's sort of part two with where am I getting into this thing. So this thing pre-market was buzzing. I was making a note of the levels here. And obviously this stock was gapping up, but what I like to see is I'm a big fan of taking pre-market highs out, but I'm also a big fan of taking VWAP squeezes. This VWAP squeeze sort of happens at about 314. I got in a little bit earlier than that. I got in at 308, and this is essentially what happened into the market. So price action snaps that pre-market squeeze. We're putting in a high probability ascending triangle pattern. There are a couple key components to this trade that are happening all at once. It starts with an EMA crossover of the MACD, which is hyper bullish. We're looking at a change in momentum from the downside back into the upside, which is extremely bullish. And the RSI, the relative strength indicator, was also putting in some work to the upside. And on the break, we had some above average volume coming into the market. Now, LIXT has a very, very small float, and I believe that there was float rotation that had already been committed a few times over when this price was breaking this structural level. So I got into this immediately. Now, step by step, I was walking the team through this, through the pre-market report, telling them why I was watching it. In the chat room, I was saying going over to the newsroom, which we have, which is for members only. I said, check this out. This is the stock that I'm watching and the reasons behind it. I talked about the 4-point process that we go through, and I marked off all of my levels on this stock, and then this thing absolutely exploded. Now, my first target on this was about $4. I wanted to get just over that pre-market high. It took that level up. And then I started to get really, really aggressive with my stops. And as price action moved aggressively off of the EMA, I started to raise stops. So as soon as it took out 4, I took my stop from where I initially had it to break even. Then I banked a 10% realized profit with my stops. Then I started moving stops up even higher, and I started to trail price action as it was moving its way up the ladder. So you can see that most, if not all of that bullish movement came pre-market, and then within the first hour and a half of the market, that is where 60% of the volume, the volatility is going to be expressed in that first early portion of the market. That's where all of the hyperactivity is going to be with excitement and whatnot. And so with this one, this strategy was an ascending triangle that was squeezing a VWAP. And like I said, we had the momentum shifting, and everything that I needed to see was in this, and it was all based on there being a catalyst. This thing actually ended up skyrocketing. Yesterday's close to today's high. This thing was up substantially. And this was the big trade of the day that we were putting on. It did close a little bit lower, as you can see. Not so great, but there was some nice movement in here. There was a halt that I had to sit through, but you could see that again, it put in some really, really nice movement. And the pattern here was an ascending triangle, which was squeezing that VWAP, and we had that crossover system, and then price action jumped. It was a beautiful, beautiful trade. And this is what me and the team did today. We used our profit target taking levels on this, which we coach on in the all access area. So if you want to get in front of how we're taking these trades off in terms of profit, how we're managing risk, all packed up in there in the masterclass. And this was the trade today. So that's LIXT, another big rip. And you can actually see that if we go back, there were a number of great movers off of the bio list that I was running. And there were some great movers off of this list as well. ATNM, this was another one. There was a nice intraday spike here. Same pattern, doing the same thing every single day. TTRO, you can see the same spike. So we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's all about those high probability patterns, which are coming on the back of incredible news pieces. And then we just follow that 4-part process. Is there a catalyst? Where am I getting in? Where am I getting out? As in, where's my profit target taking level? And where is my stop? And then the big question is, does the reward constitute the risk? And in a lot of these cases where these stocks explode, yes, the risk, it's worth taking the risk for the potential reward. The way that we map these things out with our profit target taking tool, it actually gives us a mathematical equation on how much upside there is versus downside. And so we can actually know before we get into the trade, if this is a high probability scenario, it does have a potential to get up to one of these high probability target taking levels. And we can see in real time if the reward is worth taking the risk. And so this is what we do every single day. This is just a recap on what we did today. If you go through the video library on YouTube specifically, you'll see that there is nothing different about what I'm doing every single morning. If you want to learn more in this YouTube video description box just below, there is going to be some links as to learning how to trade just like this. See you in the next review.